Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this open information session for Yenching Academy of Peking University. As you probably see on your screens, this information session is being recorded and will later be shared on our social media and on our official website. So during today's meeting, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to do one of two things. You could type your question into the chat function, and either we will answer your question in the order we received it at the end of our presentations, or if it's a very specific question, perhaps one of the admissions staff who's here in the meeting with us today will answer your question directly in the chat function. We're very fortunate to have three current Yenching scholars with us on today's open information session to give a little bit more of student perspectives on their experience while in the program. So it's my great pleasure to have you all here today. Thank you for your interest in Yenching Academy, and thanks for taking the time out of your morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are in the world, to learn a little bit more about what we think is a really outstanding opportunity offered by Peking University and Yenching Academy. First off, my name is Brent Haas. I'm Associate Dean, Director of Admission Affairs, and Distinguished Associate Professor here at Yenching Academy of Peking University. It's my real pleasure to introduce our program to you today. So, we're going to do a presentation where I'll speak for about 25 minutes, giving an overview of many aspects of our program. And then we're going to be bringing in three current Yenching scholars to talk about different aspects of their experience here in the program. And at the very end, I'll come back in and host the final section when we talk more specifically about application requirements, strategies, and the documents that you will need to submit. So let's get started. Yenching Academy is proudly a part of Peking University, China's oldest institution of comprehensive higher education, founded in 1898, and we'll certainly say one of the best in China. It is an absolutely stunning campus, a historically significant and beautiful place to live, to work, and to study. The main focus of Yenching Academy's life, both study and administrative work, is Jingyuan. Jingyuan is a historically significant section of campus in the central western portion of Peking University's campus. It's where we have our administration building, our teaching building, which you can see one of the classrooms in the upper middle, as well as the student dormitory that's about 100 meters away. Jingyuan are renovated buildings originally built in the 1920s as part of a former university that was located on this campus before Peking University moved from its old campus up to where we are now in 1952. In the upper right, you can see one of the residents, one of our neighbors that lives in Jingyuan Courtyard 3. Curry Chicken, or Galiji, is one of the many cats that lives on Peking University's campus. In fact, one of the most popular PKU student clubs is the Beida Maoxie. It's a club dedicated to caring for the semi-feral cats that live on campus, literally hundreds of them. We have currently two cats that live in Jingyuan Courtyard 3. So what is Yenching Academy of Peking University? Simply put, we are a 2-year, fully funded master's program in interdisciplinary China studies. We look at contemporary China, and we look back into time at the historical, economic, social, political, cultural changes that have created the China that we see today. We're also interested in how the changes that have happened in China are creating a different approach to China's role in the world. We look to promote cross-cultural understanding. We look to bring together just over 100 young master students from around the world, all of whom are interested in better understanding one or more aspects of historical and contemporary China. We are highly integrated into the humanities and social science fields at Peking University. And we're very, very fortunate to draw upon faculty and academic resources across multiple departments, schools, and institutes at our university. And we're also a highly diverse, multicultural community that brings together young people from China and many places around the world, all with a shared interest in better understanding today's China and the historical and cultural changes that produced what we see today. So, as I said, we are a 2-year, fully funded master's program in interdisciplinary China studies. The language of instruction and of administration at Yenching Academy is English. Therefore, no prior fluency or even proficiency in Chinese language is required to apply. However, since we are such a competitive and international master's program, if you have previous Chinese language experience, proficiency, coursework related to China, study abroad experience in China, internships or research experiences that are connected to China or China studies, then I highly suggest that you emphasize those in your application package. It is not a requirement, but it can potentially be a competitive advantage. As I mentioned a couple of times, we're integrated into humanities and social sciences at Peking University. One of the ways that this actually in practice works is we encourage our students to take classes in other departments and schools across the university. Now, in most cases for our international students, this will be courses that are offered in English. But if you are already highly proficient in Chinese language in general at the HSK level 6, then you are welcome to and encouraged to take content courses in other departments and schools taught in Chinese. It's a really exciting opportunity, but certainly quite a challenge indeed. I'm going to talk a little bit about our financial package coming up because, in general, it's often very, very difficult to find a fully funded master's program. The Yenching Fellowship is there to essentially take care of your basic economic needs so you can focus wholeheartedly on your studies, on your research, and on developing connections, friendships, and working relationships with other Yenching scholars and Peking University students. Our fellowship package covers full tuition. The fellowship package also covers accommodation. In year 1, that accommodation will be at the Yenching Academy House, a nicely renovated dormitory just for Yenching scholars. Most students will be living in a private bedroom with a shared common area and bathroom. So 2 private bedrooms per 1 room. In the second year, Yenching scholars are also able to live off of campus, and we're seeing more and more students who are interested in doing so. Should Yenching scholars choose to live off campus, we will offer a housing stipend for them to help support their housing needs. We also offer a monthly stipend of 3,000 renminbi. This is to cover your basic living necessities and any related research activities. We also cover travel to and from Beijing once. In theory, that should be coming here at the beginning of your first year and leaving upon graduation. But it's also okay for if you need to or want to go back home for a visit at the end of your first year, then you're just responsible for getting yourself back to Beijing in year 2. And we also offer the standard health insurance package for international students living and studying in China. In addition to those basic aspects of the Yenching Fellowship, we also offer funded field study and field research opportunities. In year 1, that includes with our field study fall semester required course, as well as the field research component connected to the second semester of the required course, China in Transition. For elective courses, we also will fund faculty organized field research or field study experiences as long as it fits in with the themes and the timing of the course. There are other funding opportunities available, and I think the one to highlight in the first year is the Dean's Research Grant. This is a competitively offered research grant for individuals or small group extracurricular field research projects that culminate in a research paper at the end of your first year. In the second year, we offer the Language Enrichment Fellowship for international students. That will be for the intensive study of Chinese in the fall semester of their second year. For native Chinese speakers, that can be a third foreign language, a non-English foreign language as well. In the second year, we also offer on a competitive basis teaching assistantships, residential assistantships, office positions as well. And for all Yenching scholars, we have exchange opportunities available. Through Yenching Academy's own exchange relationships, we have exchange programs with Cornell University in the United States, Trinity College, University of Cambridge in the UK, Waseda University, and Tokyo University in Japan, as well as Seoul National University in South Korea. Peking University also has other exchange programs through their EAP, their Education Abroad program. But I generally don't recommend international students go on exchanges and for the fall semester of their second year. Coming to China, living in Beijing, studying at Peking University is already a kind of an exchange experience. Unless perhaps you have a thesis topic that connects very, very closely to the region and some of the work of the professors at a certain university where you might be exchanging. For instance, let's say you were doing a Sino-South Korean international relations thesis project. Well, then it might make a lot of sense to go to Seoul National University and study with some experts there. Okay, I want to give you a little bit of introduction to the academic life at Yenching Academy. And this will mainly be focusing on year one, the year in which all of your courses are completed. At Yenching Academy, the first year is for coursework, the summer after your first year, and the second year is for research, for carrying out your dissertation or your thesis research project, for conceptualizing the project, drafting the paper, defending a successful master's thesis. Yenching Academy is part of what I think a really fascinating process of defining what China studies as an academic field means when it's done in China, taught by faculty at China's top university. We're also part of a process of integrating some of the best practices of interdisciplinary research methodology and teaching methodology into China's system of higher education at the master's degree level. And these 6 research areas are how we're doing that. China studies is a new field in the PRC and under the regulations set by China's Ministry of Education. It is what is considered a second level academic course of study, an 二级学科, rather than a first level academic course of study or first level degree, an 一级学科. So the way that we help define interdisciplinary China studies and integrate our coursework into the recognized degrees granted by the Ministry of Education and Peking University are these 6 research areas. These research areas are very, very important to all Yenching scholars' experiences in 3 ways. When you apply, you select one of these 6 research areas. At the end of your first year, when you submit a formal thesis proposal, you choose a thesis advisor, and that thesis advisor must be drawn from a faculty, department, institute, or school at Peking University in one of the research area that you've chosen. And finally, when you graduate, this is what shows up on your diploma. So for instance, taking China Studies, Economics, and Management as an example, your diploma will say Peking University, Master of Economics, and just below that, China Studies, Economics, and Management. Master of Economics, the economics there is a first level degree, and then below that, China Studies, Economics, and Management is a second level degree. Similarly, Peking University, Master of History, China Studies, History, and Archaeology. Now let's go back to the application stage, because this is what's most relevant to you today. It is really important that you think about and strategically plan which research area to which you'll be applying at the application stage. So what do I mean by that? We as an admissions team have a responsibility to not only bring in the best students into the program, but to also do our best to ensure that the students admitted to the program have the requisite academic qualifications to be able to study and research at the graduate level in the field or fields to which they're applying. So what that means, maybe more thematically or generally, is that we need to see a connection between what you have studied before or currently are studying, if you're applying as a student right now, what you plan to study at Yenching Academy, and what you want to do with your career. There needs to be a connection. There needs to be an understandable story from what you have studied to what you want to do with us and where you want to go with your career. Now, you might think that means that you can only apply to China Studies, History, and Archaeology if you are currently working on a history degree or an archaeology degree, or have already received a degree in those fields. That's not exactly what I mean. We're not just going to look at the title of your degree. We're going to look at your academic transcript, the courses you've taken. We're going to look at your letters of recommendation, where professors will hopefully be talking about your performance in courses or perhaps some of the papers you've written. We're paying attention to your internship and or professional experience. We essentially want to make sure that you have been trained in one of the academic fields to which you're applying. Now, this is most important for, in general, economics and management. You know, if you have an econ degree, a finance degree, or that's what you're working toward, then it certainly makes sense that you could apply to economics and management. If you don't have one of those degrees, then it might also still make sense if, for instance, you've taken microeconomics, macroeconomics, statistical analysis, and perhaps have done some internships in financial institutions. So it's not just about the name of your degree. It's much more about the depth and breadth of your academic and professional experience in the field to which you're applying. So if, say, you are an anthropology bachelor holder and you're applying to, let's say, politics and international relations, well, on the surface, that doesn't look necessarily like a match. But if perhaps you've taken some courses on the theories, different IR theories, or perhaps if your thesis is somehow blending your previous experience in anthropology and taking advantage of some academic and professional experience in international relations, then it could make sense. So if there isn't a direct, obvious connection between what you've studied before and what you're planning to study at Yenching Academy, anticipate that we'll have some questions about that and try to address those questions in your application materials. When you're admitted to the program, all Yenching scholars in year one take 4 main classes together. These are China in Transition 1 and 2, Field Study, Topics in China Lecture Series, and Academic Writing. For all international Yenching scholars, you are required to take Chinese language courses. That's 4 hours of Chinese class, plus 2 hours with a paid graduate student who's working to become a professional Chinese language teacher per week. Unless if an international student has already achieved full professional proficiency by passing the HSK level 6. So these are the courses that all Yenching scholars will take together in year one. Very briefly, I'd highlight China in Transition 1 and 2, 2-semester, year-long course introducing contemporary China. The fall semester is focused on sort of a broad-based introduction in different modules, say Chinese economy, Chinese society, Chinese political system, and it's co-taught by 10 or more leading professors at Peking University. The spring semester, on the other hand, you apply directly to one section of the course taught by one of the professors from the fall semester, and you should select the section that is best suited, best fit with your developing research interests. That offers a more disciplinary look at contemporary China, building up to a field research project that is mentored by that faculty member. Here are some of the elective courses that are taught at Yenching Academy in 2024 to 2025. So fall 2024 currently, and the upcoming spring semester of 2025. These are in politics and international relations, economics and management, and law and society. The next slide is in the humanities, which we're defining as history and archaeology, literature and culture, and philosophy and religion. A couple of things to point out about these courses. They're taught by Peking University faculty that are contracted to come teach courses with us here at Yenching Academy. Nearly all of them are taught in English, except on this slide you can see Chinese politics and historical perspective and rural China studies. And on the next slide, you can see a couple of guided readings or selected readings in literature or in the Chinese classics. I also want to strongly emphasize that despite the fact that these are organized in columns associated with the research areas, you can take any elective course that you want. You are not restricted to elective courses in your own research area. Now, everyone's going to have a slightly different strategy for how to select elective courses. Some people maybe want to focus exactly on their research area to get a greater depth of training and reading done before their master's thesis in year two. Some people might want to explore very, very broadly. Maybe you are a philosophy and religion major, but you're going to take a lot of courses in literature and culture and law and society or what have you. And some students also like to focus most of their coursework outside of Yenching Academy in other departments and schools, or a blend of all three. So, however you want to do it is fine with us. We do, however, encourage you to work with your faculty advisor to talk about your developing research interest and get some advice from them and or other students about which courses you should take. We hope that in the back of your mind, the coursework that you choose to focus on for your elective classes will help prepare you for your master's thesis in year two. Okay, coming up in second year, I'm going to show you that we'll be hearing from one of our students coming up next. We'll have some more coming about learning in the classroom and distinguished guests. I do want to emphasize that we try to bring in some leaders in the field, both in diplomacy, in industry, and academics to join our program to share their experiences and perhaps give you a broader introduction to different aspects of personal development and global leadership. I'd like to emphasize that the former Prime Minister of France, Jean-Pierre Raffarin, has been a visiting chair professor at Yenching Academy for the last year and a half, where he hosts a year-long series of seminars, lectures, and discussions on global affairs and leadership. There's going to be a lot going on at Yenching Academy, so much going on that you're not necessarily going to be able to focus, attend all of the social and cultural activities outside of the classroom. You know, as a fully funded Yenching scholar, you are in essence a professional student. So obviously, your academic responsibilities come first, but there's going to be plenty of time for joining clubs, for having a lot of fun. One of our scholars will be telling us more about that coming up soon. I'd like to give you a little bit of demographic data about Yenching scholars as a group. We're currently celebrating our 10th anniversary. Here you can see a top level sort of regional distribution about where Yenching scholars have come from through our first 10 cohorts. We've had just under 1,100 students join our program over the last 10 years, and they come from 85 different countries and regions. These scholars are roughly from 40% from Asia, and that includes 28 scholars from mainland China every year, about 25% from North America, just about 25% from Europe, 5% from Latin America, 4% from Africa. So obviously we have a little bit of work to do, which we're aware of, in increasing our enrollments from the Global South. And we are excited to have some new strategies in place. In fact, I've just come back from one of my several upcoming intended trips to Africa, and there are some trips on the schedule to Latin America again. These are the universities that have placed the highest number of graduates at Yenching Academy in our first 10 years. Now, you don't have to be from one of these universities to enter the program. These are simply the universities that have had the highest number of graduates join our program. So you can see that we have students from many of the top universities around the world. Most Yenching scholars have a bachelor's degree. I think the most common application profile or students applying in the fourth year or the final year, I should say, of their bachelor's program. But every year we do have up to sometimes 20% of our scholars who already have postgraduate degrees. Maybe it's already a master's degree or a law degree or an MBA. So there is a slight diversity in age range and in level of highest degree earned. And I personally think that's a really interesting way to structure a program. If everyone was the same age, if everyone had the same academic degree, the bachelor's degree, all focused on East Asian studies, then maybe you would have read all the same books and might ask the same questions and have the same reactions to the content offered to you in our first year coursework. Here you can see the uneven spread research areas at Yenching Academy. Obviously, politics and international relations and economics and management are running away as the most popular of the research areas, followed in third place by law and society. The good old humanities together come up to about one-fifth, about 20%. Now, this is not planned. This just represents what the best applicants in any given year have chosen to focus on. You will not be advantaged or disadvantaged for choosing one degree or one research area over another, unless you choose a research area that you really don't have the requisite level of academic training before joining the program. That's the only way that a choice on research areas might negatively affect you. We have another Yenching scholar will be coming up in a minute to talk to us about career support and development. Okay, so we're going to now move back to the second year experience. You've already wrapped up your first year. You've submitted a thesis topic, a thesis proposal. You have a thesis advisor. We really think that the second year of the Yenching Academy is where the beginnings of expertise related to China is formed. And I would like to welcome one of our China studies experts, second year scholar Pippa.
Hopefully everyone can hear me. That was a great presentation, Brent, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of today's share. I'll do a little brief intro. I've got about 10 minutes to talk about myself and use up this space. So I'll go as quickly into the academic stuff as possible, but just some background from me. So I'm part of the 24% from Europe. There are quite a few of us from the UK in my year, but there were quite a few as well we had Spain, we had France, we had a pretty diverse group in our cohort in general. I studied at Oxford, I did English literature, but I had quite an extensive background in China before joining YCA. So I'd been living in China for 4 years. I've now lived in 4 different cities in China. Before joining YCA, I'd lived in 3. And I've been working with China for 7 years, both from the UK, but also in those various cities. So I had what I would consider a fairly strong background in China, very high interest in China. And YCA for me was a decision I made. I saw it as an opportunity to consolidate all of my knowledge and experiences around China from an academic perspective. So as you can see, I had a high interest in China, but I didn't have any academic experience in China, and I hadn't formally learned Mandarin. So this was an opportunity to appreciate China from an academic lens, which I hadn't done yet. So as you can see, there was a huge range of things that I did. These were all in the first year. So YCA is an incredible platform that gives you time, resource, and really the inspiration to go and do things. And I'm going to keep using that word platform because it's such an important one for understanding the value of YCA. So for me, really big highlights were creating my own community or platform called Shaoyuan Salon, where any YCA scholar could come and talk for 10 minutes on any subject, and actually talked about her hometown, which was an amazing share. We had people talking about kind of their hobbies, their academic interests, time in Chile, mining industry, and it was an amazing way to learn about fellow students. But really, YCA gives you the opportunity to create things as well as joining lots of other initiatives. I traveled a huge amount, both Beijing and beyond, in Qinghai and Sichuan, and there's a lot of opportunities. So many of the cohort travel on the weekends, and that's an incredible opportunity. And trail running. I was already a trail runner, but you have time to go and pursue those hobbies, either ones you already love or taking up more as well. And then this is the academic part, which is really just such a mixture of what YCA offers. So you've got field trips, which is the one in the middle. You've got the coursework piece completed in EU. This is YGS, the Global Symposium, which Anne will talk about later. And then these were some additional opportunities for speaking that you get along the way. So YCA is much more than the academics, but I am going to be focusing on the academic side. So yeah, there's a huge amount. I would really split the academic side into several sections. So you've got the main courses that you do in year one, and year one is really about that academic foundation in China studies. And one of the courses took me to experience that and to see that in the field trip. You do have a lot of fieldwork opportunities during those programs. So if that's something that's really of interest to you, beside those kind of core modules, you have individual research projects that are either in addition, so the Dean's Grant, which you can apply for, or you have coursework that you have to complete as a group as well. So that again is more kind of research based in preparation for that second year of research. So let me just delve in a bit more into academic highlights. So I know there were some questions about what the courses are and whether there are options to do energy or whether there are options to do things in education. And really, there is such a range of courses on offer. So I did, for example, Chinese worldviews, I did Chinese international education, I did agricultural policy, which is in Mandarin. So there's such a breadth of topics, and you can really play around with that variety. Something else that was really a highlight was the professor. So again, there were questions about selecting your professor, your thesis advisor. You can choose from outside YCA. And that was something I chose to do because I wanted someone with a very deep specialism in what my thesis topic was. And the professor I managed to find was someone who was so closely aligned to my thesis topic, which was on international education. He had literally published papers that I had wanted to publish and thought no one had published before. Slightly heartbreaking, but also amazing to work with someone who is that much of an expert. And so there's a lot of professors you can choose from. I think something to really highlight is on this call, some of you will be looking at your future classmates. There really is, because everyone comes from such different backgrounds, what they're able to contribute to class discussion and in their presentations. I was constantly learning so much from my classmates, particularly those from China, where they are sharing their Chinese perspective. And obviously being in China, that's so essential to have that. Field work, there really are a lot of opportunities to do your own field work. So I just want to talk briefly about the Dean's Research Grant, which I was very lucky to get. And if you join YCA, I would really urge you to apply for it. You apply with a research topic that you want to either do in a group or individually. I did mine individually, and it was looking at the role that African students were having in agricultural development in China. So I went to travel to a farm and looked at the engagement and the work that African students were doing there. Absolutely fascinating, and it gave me the platform to do that. And then really you have a lot of credibility as a student of Beida to go and talk to people, to go and publish. Again, returning to that word platform, it really is a platform to go and use as you want. And again, YGS, the Global Symposium, again, is another opportunity that's unique to Yenching, that gives a platform for meeting people who are experts at their field. And then in that second year, that really is about writing your thesis and delving in more deeply to a topic. So I studied society and law. As you saw, my undergrad was in English literature. So really, this didn't have anything to do with what I'd done in the past. But what I really did in focusing my application was how I wanted to develop a specific research area within society and law, and gave evidence for why that was relevant and how some of the work before that I'd done was relevant. It's actually not that long in length, really, in terms of word count. I think it's 14,000. You do end up doing a lot more than that typically. But it's not huge, but really it's an opportunity to develop expertise in one area. So my topic was the challenges that Chinese students face in the UK at UK universities. So I have completed that thesis. It was an amazing journey. Most people completed it in their second term. It really depends how you want to do it, but that whole second year is for writing your thesis, and so it's up to you how long you take and how long you want that research period to be. Um, many people are starting their thesis now and they're writing it and they're constantly working over the next 6 months. The advisor support can be a lot. I was seeing mine once every 2 weeks. It was really deep collaboration. I've come out with really original research, which I am going to be publishing beyond PKU, both in China, in Mandarin, and also in English with a think tank in the UK next year. So the thesis is what you make of it. You can make it a really meaningful piece of work which you want to publish beyond. You can make it an exploration of a topic that you really are interested in, but it's really an opportunity to delve deeply into an area of research and develop expertise. So I'm going to conclude there, but really what I'd emphasize is I would really encourage you to apply if you are interested in China, if you want to explore more, and if you want to have a platform that gives you an opportunity to develop your knowledge and explore. It really is an opportunity to explore. And it has been for me, it's been a great experience. I'm one of the older ones in the cohort, and I think that's been an advantage. So, yes, thank you very much for listening. I will look at some of the questions, but feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Everyone at YCA is incredibly friendly, including the professors in the cohort. I spoke to a lot of Yenching scholars before applying. They all took my calls and stupid questions. So please do come to me with any questions. Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Pippa. Really appreciate it. Anne, are you ready to? There you go. Anne, the floor is now yours.
Hi everyone. I'm originally from Guam and I'm one of the residential advisors here. Super excited to be chatting. Just echoing what Pippa said. I think YCA was amazing. I think last year was one of the best years, if not the best year I had in life. And there's a reason I was here for a second year period. But wanted to walk people through what the extracurricular scene looks like on campus, starting with some of my own experiences. I'll talk more later about the Yenching Global Symposium. It's our flagship event. I was the co-chair so last year, so I was extensively involved in the process. It's a 4-day symposium. We had 30 speakers. We flew 100 delegates from 10,000 applications last year to Beijing, where we hosted the symposium. And in past years, we've actually also hosted the event in Hainan, which is an island off the coast of southern China, so much hotter than Beijing. It's now getting quite cold here. But actually, two of the other things I wanted to focus on this slide include being president of the Peking University Dragon Boat Association. I joined the PKU, we call it PKU, like Peking, the Dragon Boat team, completely as a newbie last year. I drum for them. I also paddle on the left side. So for those who are unfamiliar, Dragon Boat is divided into left and right. And it's completely dependent on, kind of your personal stamina, but it has been phenomenal. We have practices every single day, depending on how many times you want to go a week. And once a week, we go into the city to actually train on Hohai. Dragon Boat traditionally is an extremely culturally diverse, but also actually quite uniquely Chinese sport. So it's very well done here. And next semester, in the springtime, there's the Dragon Boat Festival. It's one of the major holidays in China. So last year, for about a month, I was constantly on a subway, on a high-speed railway, which public transportation in China is fantastic, or I was at the airport hopping to different races because along with the Yenching team, but mostly with the Peking University official team, I'd be traveling to places around China. And so that was my way of kind of traveling free across the country. And over the summer, I was much more involved in something called zhijiao in China. So it's rural volunteer teaching. There is one caveat to this, and it's that you must speak Mandarin fluently in order to teach for these programs. But for the first program that I did, it was in Gaomi. So China has a Nobel laureate called Mo Yan, and this is his hometown. Some of his most famous books, including Red Sorghum, was actually based on his hometown. And we taught there to little kids. The conditions were extremely bad, but it actually taught us much about kind of the diversity of China. You could be living in a beautiful city like Beijing, but also be from a rural area that's extremely under-resourced, where people are taking the national exam, trying to get into universities like Peking. And for many people, this is the ultimate dream in terms of academic achievement. Later on in the summer, I taught at another school in Xingan, Jiangxi, and they're very famous for producing languages in China. And this one was actually much more English friendly. And so there, I teach people English. They're actually taught kids. We had other courses in mental health, on sex ed. We had classes on Chinese philosophy. The goal was to expose students to different types of programming, but it was much more interesting because earlier in the summer, we'd work with kids who are middle school students who had never seen, a foreigner. They have no idea what it means to be from Guam, which is originally where I'm from. They have no idea what it means to study in an English environment. And later on, when I was teaching the high school students, they were all preparing for the Gaokao, the national exam. And I would actually have to try to tell these kids why understanding their mental health was actually an extremely important process of studying for the exam. And so here are some pictures. I was born and raised on Guam for 18 years, and I went to Princeton, where I majored in East Asian studies. And so I joke with people when people ask, what did you study? I said I majored in China. That is not to say that coming to YCA was planned. I had no plans to actually come to YCA. I'd only applied to YCA the week of the deadline. So I fully believe people when they say that you can get an application in before the deadline because an advisor had recommended. I knew very little about the program. Unlike y'all, I actually hadn't been to an information session, but I was familiar with China because I came nearly every summer growing up because my parents are born and raised from China. And then I went to New Jersey, which is where Princeton is located. But before studying East Asian studies, I was actually an economics major for the longest time. And kind of after COVID, I was like, I'm going to go study China, this country that very few people know about. I knew Mandarin in advance. I'd studied abroad in Japan. And so coming to Beijing was refreshing in different ways. But I was concerned that knowing too much about China was actually a deterrent to coming to Peking. Can tell you very much, if you're a Chinese American, Chinese hyphen whatever, there is never enough of China in that sense. You will always have more to study about this country, and being fluent in the language is helpful. But there are many ways to study a language, a culture. China is massive, and China is so different from studying it in an academic environment versus being Chinese American or speaking Chinese at home or coming to this country, visiting your family. In the middle picture there is a Yenching Academy orientation, one of the traditions every year, and you'll see all the flags. We have many flags across the world for every person who actually comes through to China through our program. And we kind of put handprints on these posters. It's an annual tradition. You'll also see green paint shirts because we're divided into classes where we do YCA Olympics, tug of war, hula hoop. Sometimes we'll even do other types of more Chinese races like jianzi, which is like kicking kind of the shuttlecock things on your leg. And then the final photo you'll have here was actually an impromptu group excursion. So every Wednesday, we take a class called CIT. It's called China in Transition. It's this lecture where you sit through. And one day after lecture, actually, a few minutes before the lecture ended, someone just said, does anyone want to go get like lamb, which is right off campus. It's skewered lamb. And a bunch of us just biked around the city. And it was actually one of my best memories because it was so funny eating lamb with dozens of people and then just biking around. And biking in the city is extremely convenient. Now I want to get to Yenching Global Symposium. We call it YGS. It is our flagship student event. I was co-chair last year, so I'm extremely proud to be talking about this event. But essentially, for about 10 years now, every single year, students come together for a committee. There are about 12 to 14 people running this program. It's a 3 to 4 day full immersive symposium where we fly delegates around the world. There's about 100 every year to join the Yenching scholars to be in either Beijing or in Hainan or some other location, hopefully later on, to listen to speakers from around the world talk about China with their specific topic. So that could be China and electric vehicles, China and other cultural traditions. Some things you'll notice here, you'll notice a Peking opera performance. We have many cultural workshops in the process. Last year, there were martial arts, there was calligraphy, there was a really well done Peking opera performance put on by the student committee at Peking University, and they've been training since they're in elementary school. You were meeting people from Hungary all the way to South Africa. And so it was a really interesting way to kind of form lifelong friendships. And I still still keep in touch with some of the friends I've made from YGS. So I think it's a very unique experience through the Yenching program. Here are some of the themes that we've had with YGS. China meets the world. And then we also have woman, which is focused on women. It's kind of a pun that's explaining more feminine related stories, which sometimes can be missing in the Chinese context. And then we get to Yenching Global Symposium 2023, which actually was based in Hainan. And 2024, we have our theme, which was equilibrium, our world in balance. And so kind of a big focus of us was we wanted to talk about technology. So we talked a lot about AI, but we actually had a lot of focus on sports. At one point, we had a panel that was just Olympic champions. And one thing about China is there's no shortage of Olympic champions in this country. If anyone had watched Paris Olympics, you would definitely know that. But it was really cool seeing some Olympic champions come through campus. And one of the best parts, I think, of Yenching Academy, aside from just being friends with people from 40 different countries, is that you get access to Peking University. And you'd be surprised. I spend almost every single day here going to our theater on campus. I originally thought I was to watch theater, but it turns out that lots of celebrities in China love coming to Peking University because of how difficult it is to get in as a Chinese student. We have movie premieres here. I go to at least one a week. And plenty of movie premieres with actual celebrities coming to talk about their movies after the movies are done. And there are a range of other activities. You have xiangsheng, which is like, local Chinese tradition. You have other just like movie screenings almost on a daily basis and so many activities. And then here's another picture. The left side was the opening ceremony last year. It was unfortunately raining, which is actually quite rare in Beijing sometimes. And coming from a really tropical, humid location, I actually really appreciated that. And then on the right side was a scavenger hunt we did. So Yenching Academy had done their own scavenger hunt, but there were a lot of pagodas on campus. And so we ended up at a pagoda, and one of the chemistry departments was running their own scavenger hunt. So we kind of merged our two activities there. And some other photos here. There's a lot of dance opportunities. I take classes here in a range of things. You can go to the gym, find a personal trainer. You can take like Zumba classes, yoga classes. I mean, more extracurriculars than I thought ever possible. That is the benefit to going to a school with 40,000 students. There are a lot of very, very well taught classes, whether by students or professionals, and they're extremely cheap, usually for the person to afford. In the middle, you'll see kind of a poll that people are taking because we have Student Olympics. It's a big thing at the university where students engage in all types of activities. On the right side, you'll see YCA Yenching Academy is extremely proud of its basketball team. There are intramural departments, but Peking University is a massive department. So lots of soccer and basketball games. We bring drums and flags, and we're kind of known as being really rowdy and extremely excited to support our friends. And that's very unique to YCA. We also have calligraphy classes, and then an annual tradition is to take photos via graduation on the Great Wall. And so if there's one thing I could summarize, I really did not plan to come to Yenching. I don't think that I even planned to come to Beijing, and to move halfway across the world is an extremely difficult thing to do wherever you are, no matter how many times, if you've ever been to China. But I think there are fewer decisions I've made more correct than being in Yenching. And I would love to talk to anyone. Reach me out on LinkedIn if you have any questions to convince you why I think it's a really well worth it program to actually open your eyes and see another world. And even if you believe you know this world, trust me, you don't, because there are many, many things to see about the university and about this really important country kind of on the global stage. Thank you so much for everyone.
All right, Anne, really appreciate your presentation. Thanks for sharing your experiences and your thoughts. Nunu, you're up. Would you come in and talk a little bit more about, there we go, career development and alumni success?
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Some of my classmates have focused on academics, while I'm just focused on the extracurricular activities in YCA. Before I proceed, I just wanted to know that no matter who you are, where you are, or where you're from, there is always something in YCA for you, whether you're focusing on academics solely or extracurricular activities, or if your focus is on career development or leadership. Just a little background about myself. I'm from Nigeria originally. I graduated from Landmark University in Nigeria, where I studied politics and IR. Before coming to YCA, I worked in the field of international development for about 2 years. Since coming to YCA, I served as co-director of volunteers for YGS, which Anne just spoke about briefly. Last year, a very, very fantastic conference where we flew over 100 delegates from all over the world for the Yenching Global Symposium. And since coming to China, my research interests have, been, so many interesting things, relationship between infectious diseases such as COVID-19 and gamophobia. Gamophobia simply means that the fear of marriage, migration issues, which my current thesis is focused on, and the growing topic in academia and in global affairs, climate change. So over the course of my life in China, I've come to understand that leadership is a journey, one that is open to everyone, and regardless of your previous experience or your leadership abilities previously, YCA has a way of bringing that innate abilities to fruition. There's no peak to leadership, like I say to my friends. There's no finish line when it comes to leadership, and YCA has a way of grooming that for you to make you be a better leader. In other words, every aspect of YC is focused on leadership, maybe through discussions with your peers or through conversations with your thesis advisor. Each aspect is focused on leadership in one way or the other. You can see from my screen here where I spoke at Beijing Forum, where my speech focused on the Young African Leadership Initiative, a beneficiary experience. So what I did was to focus my experience on the yearly program is an initiative of President Barack Obama, former US president, and now I'm a current Yenching scholar. So I'm looking at, okay, how, these two global powers, the US and China, can, collaborate to, make opportunities sustainable for the youths in Africa or for the youths in Global South. That's what my, presentation at the Beijing Forum focused on. And this was made possible by my academic advisor, Professor Liu Weifeng, who also doubles as a Director for Center for African Studies. Another interesting thing about YCA is that every year, every first year student has the opportunity to get matched with a mentor. We call it the PLM, Professional Leadership Mentorship Program. You get to meet with a mentor that's an expert in their field. I was privileged to meet with a mentor who is the founder of Peaceland Foundation, Chu Lily, and she gave me the platform to speak on the EcoCircuit Forum, where my focus was on harnessing how technology can be like the importance of technology, of equipping young girls across Africa with technology. Let me interest you in a very important fact that by 2030, 230 million jobs in Africa will require digital skills. And there's a widening gap in terms of digital access, actually between the male and the female gender. So my presentation at the EcoCircuit Forum focused on how we can actually ensure that girls in Africa get access to, digital technologies and are, digital literate. Over here again, you can see a picture of me. This was taken just recently, last week, where I welcomed a delegation of the University of Sydney, the Vice Chancellor and the President of the University of Sydney. So it's all about career development. I work currently as the admissions officer of the YCA. So every aspect is focused on leadership. I had interesting conversations with the Vice Chancellor, an opportunity that I wouldn't have maybe gotten if I had not been in YCA. So I'll just move forward to the career support and leadership development for scholars. Like I said, no matter how you are, no matter where you're from, there's always something in YCA for you. So every year, every month, every week, there's something in YCA going on for scholars or potential scholars. We have what we call the Career Day. We are interested in not just giving you the academic benefits of YCA alone or the extracurricular activities alone in YCA. There's life after YCA, and YCA leadership thinks about the life after YCA. What is the life of scholars going to look like after the program? So there's always a Career Day whereby we bring in experts from different fields, different organizations in China, come to, talk to students, where we also get to submit our CVs for internship opportunities and, career growth processes. We also have campus talk by the AIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. Currently, we have about roughly 10 scholars interning in AIB right now, a great opportunity for scholars as well. Then we also have company visits. There's always like I said, there's always something going on in YCA every week, every month, career company visits where scholars get to visit, companies. I personally have visited about 3 or 4 companies, since my coming to China. Then we also have the alumni talk. This is a way of ensuring that, we still keep in touch with, graduates. The graduates always have something to offer to current students. So we have what we call, the alumni enrichment program. So every year, every semester, we have alumni come to campus for an exchange or for a couple of months, and part of their responsibilities is to encourage students or position students through the career path post-graduation. So we also have leadership development. Like I said in my presentation beginning, there is no finish line when it comes to leadership. And no matter who you think you are, no matter where you think you're from, YCA always has a way of positioning you to ensure that you realize that there is more to learn when it comes to leadership. So we have an elective course called leadership development, which usually holds in the first semester of the first year. I took that course, and initially, I thought I knew everything about leadership. I have worked in leadership positions before coming to YCA. I have served on selection committees for different leadership programs previously to YCA. And I thought I knew all I had to do when it comes to leadership. I know I have everything in leadership, but that proved not to be the case. I got exposed to, theories, core theories of leadership, such as transformative leadership theory, interesting theories that I now apply in my personal life and has, been a boost to my career. We also have seminars. We also have workshops that take place every year. You can see from the picture here, the one on the far right below, where our students recently visited the Princeton Press office in China here. So that was about like 2 weeks ago. And like I said, the director of the Princeton Press office is one of the mentors. Remember, I mentioned that every year there's a professional leadership mentorship program for first year students. So one of the mentors offered to organize a welcome talk for scholars from the 9th cohort and from the 10th cohort as well, where they got to share insights. So what are the advice on applying for YCA? Or what are the things to look out for in terms of YCA? What does YCA really want from you? What do you want exactly from YCA? It's a two-way question. What do you want from it and what it wants from you? And applied in 1 week, which is very, very surprising to me, and encouraging as well to applicants that are still at the crossroad of, thinking of, is this the right opportunity for me or not? For me, I took about a year. I devoted about a year to apply to YCA, 2021 to 2022. Before I applied, I really studied application materials, such as, materials from the website. I really watched videos from, Professor Brent has, watched info sessions like you're watching right now. That really encouraged me or put me in the path of applying for YCA, and I really gained some experience. But like I said, no matter who you are, no matter where you are, there's always something for you on YCA. I really wanted to take a career break, a break from academics rather, after my undergraduate in 2020. So I used that 1 year to prepare for graduate school, and the right opportunity for me was YCA at that time. So, and it still is. What are the advice I have on the application? What are the pitfalls? But before I move to the pitfalls of application, I want you to also know that there are three things that I always consider when I talk about YCA. Why China? What interests you about China? The second is about why you, and you need to also express your interest in interdisciplinary program. So why China? What really interests you about China? Why is it the right time for you to come to China, for instance? Why is now the important time for you to come to? Why do you want to join the 11th cohort to learn about China, for instance? And why you? What makes you unique? Like I said, no matter how much you think you have experience, the application from different parts of the world are always competitive for YCA. So something has to stand you out. Something has to differentiate you from the crowd of the pool. So you have to make a compelling story, a compelling narrative, truthful, compelling narrative, by the way, to show that, yeah, you are the right person for YCA and China is the right place for you at this time. So what are the common pitfalls that, applications we receive usually face? Or what are the challenges that make some scholars not get into YCA sometimes? Lack of demonstrated connection to China and YCA. I mean, you can write your personal statement about 750 words. That's a lot of words to play with, and it doesn't really connect to China or to YCA. Like I said, I personally devoted 1 year to understanding China and to understanding what YCA was about. I attended the Yenching Global Symposium in 2022. I was delegating in 2022 to already understand what YCA was about, to really develop that connection. I actually interacted with scholars, current and previous scholars, to really understand their insights, both from the present and from the past about YCA. That really, gave me a really narrative to understand China. And my personal statements was, revolved around this area. So there has to be a genuine interest in China and the YCA program as well. What connections have you made with China? It doesn't have to be so much of professional experience. It could be a course you took, it could be friends you make, it could be a movie you watch, but how has that now transformed into something that makes you want to come to study in this country and really understand this country? That's one angle. Then underestimating application components. I'll always say this to prospective scholars. There is no one single important element of the YCA application process. So you might think that, okay, I need to like work so hard on my personal statements and neglect, let's say, the recommendation letters. No, if each aspect is, reviewed holistically to have a clearer picture of who you are as a future scholar. So you cannot really underestimate any application component, your recommendation letters, or your personal statement, or your statement of research interest. These are all areas that are very, very important to your activities in YCA or to your selection in YCA. Another pitfall to avoid is insufficient evidence of extracurricular activities and leadership. Now, we're not asking for you to have, we have current scholars that have been like student union government, presidents, presidents of associations. We also have scholars that have done, great things in small places. So there is no one leadership style or leadership, position that we are looking for in YCA, so to say. We're not looking for you saying, okay, you've been a president, but you don't just list these things and say, okay, I was a president. What did you really do as a president? What are the changes that you brought about as a president? Everyone can be a president, but not everyone can make change. Everyone can make change, but not everyone can make significant change. So what significant change have you made that, differentiates you from the crowd or from the pool of applicants? Yeah, you might think like, oh, I'm a president, I was president of a club, the student union government, that puts me in a better position, but that's not the case. There are other applicants with more fantastic qualifications, more than you even do. So what really sets you apart? Like I said, we're not looking for you to have held any position. For me, titles don't really matter, but the change you've made, the significant change you've made really matters. So show us this evidence, show us these activities you've been involved with. Like I said, it's all culminating to making you a future YC scholar. So over-reliance on AI is another aspect. One of the things about AI is that it really waters down your story. This is your story, own it. This is your story. No one can tell your story better than you can. So if you rely on AI, it waters down the content of your story. It waters down the ability for you to communicate effectively and show your true interest and your true understanding about China, about YCA, and about why you think this is the right program for you. So that's one thing you also want to look at on. Avoid AI as much as possible. I mean, don't rely so much on it that it takes out your own, that it takes out your voice, so to say. Another component to avoid is, missing deadlines. You might think, oh, there's always time to apply. There's always time to apply. And 1 hour to the deadline decides, well, something might always come up. Maybe your laptop gets dead. Something might always come up. So always keep at the back of your mind that deadlines are very, very important. So don't underestimate deadlines as well. And one question applicants always have asked me is that, deadlines in general. That is, do I need to submit my, does the deadline for recommendation letters is this still the same as the deadline for application? The answer is yes to that. So contrary to some other scholarships or some programs where you have the deadlines, your recommenders can always upload their recommendation letter within a stipulated time. For the case of YCA, that's not the case. Your recommenders have to submit your recommendation letters on the exact day as well of the deadline as well. So everything has to be in synchronization. Another interesting thing is this. You neglect the ability or the effectiveness of providing your essay. I cannot really overemphasize on this. Everything you do, whether application to YC or not, your academic work, there's always, something to always provide. And providing your essay sometimes could actually sometimes makes the difference. Maybe you really did not communicate your thoughts properly, or you really maybe watered down on some aspect of your essay. So sometimes having an extra eye look at your essay sometimes could also help. It could be your former professor, it could be a friend, it could be an acquaintance. Taking a look at your essay to have a different perspective, but beware of the fact that sometimes too many could spoil the food. So giving your statement of research interest or a personal statement to a lot of people to read, it might really get you confused at a point. I personally did not give anyone to review my essay for me, but I took several weeks to really understand my essay. I used a week to really understand and to really provide every component of my essay, and my statement of research interest. So that's about that for me. I want to wish you good luck Like a speaker said previously, right here are some of your future classmates, and some of you will be seen here this time next year. If you have any questions, any concerns, always feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to answer your respond to your questions. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much. And everyone, I'd like to emphasize that Philip, or as we call him, Nunu, is currently one of our admissions assistants in the office. So he has a pretty good insider view of what it takes to be successful applying to the program. And we're going to wrap up the meeting by talking about alumni success and career pathways, as well as the application process. Yenching Academy, even though we are perhaps more of a longer academically focused China Studies graduate program, I want to emphasize that we are not just training future sinologists. In fact, only about 20% of Yenching scholars go on to further graduate study. Those who do tend to go on to graduate study at the doctoral level, and those who go on to graduate study at the doctoral level after finishing Yenching Academy are incredibly successful in doing so. Here you can see some of the leading universities where Yenching scholars have matriculated for their PhD upon graduation just in recent years. But the majority tend to move on to the professional stage of their careers. And they are also highly successful moving into the professional stage of their careers upon graduation. Many Yenching scholars are interested in going into consulting firms, international organizations, private industry, tech, banking. As Pippa said, she's going to be working at least at the next stage in her career at a think tank back in the UK. Think tanks are also a very attractive and frequently seen next step for Yenching scholars after education or after their education with us here. And there's also a significant number of Yenching scholars who are interested in going back to their home country in a public service role, often a foreign ministry or diplomacy role. That is certainly a very popular option among our scholars, and that could be one that is potentially open for you as well. So we are a highly academically focused program, but we're not just training future professors. We're not a one-size-fits-all program. Your experience, should you be admitted, isn't going to be the same as everyone else's experience here. And there isn't one quote unquote profile of a successful applicant into the program. We've been working really hard to integrate our growing alumni network with current students. We now have just under 1,100 alumni, and we're going to be adding to that pretty much every year by about 100 new students. Nunu already mentioned the Alumni Enrichment Program, where it's a new policy that we put in place during the COVID years to allow some of the unfortunate couple of years of Yenching scholars who were unable to enter the country to feel a little bit more connected and still have a Beida and Yenching Academy experience. But we thought it was such a good idea, suggested by one of those cohorts of scholars, that we are making it a permanent feature to bring Yenching scholars who have graduated from the program back to Jingyuan, back to YCA, with a project in mind. They come back with a suggestion for what they want to work on while they're here. And then there are also service components as part of their alumni enrichment responsibilities, advising students, having office hours, giving presentations about their careers and their research projects, etc. Okay, let's get to the nuts and bolts. I want to tell you about how to apply to Yenching Academy. So there are essentially sort of three application pathways, and they are based on your citizenship or on your residency. International students apply directly to Yenching Academy's website. The public deadline for that is December 1st of this year, so coming up in just a couple of weeks. Scholars from the PRC have a different application route. Scholars from the PRC must have attended their undergraduate, their bachelor's program in mainland China, and they apply through what's known as the Tuimian system. This is a recommendation system to directly enroll in graduate programs without taking the postgraduate entrance examination. So Tuimian allows PRC applicants to skip the Tongkao. Unfortunately, up to this point, we are only able to accept applications from Chinese citizens via the Tuimian system. Then applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan have two application processes. One, they apply in the same way that international students apply, directly to Yenching Academy. And two, they also submit the same documents to the Peking University graduate school application portal for applicants from Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan. They essentially apply in two simultaneous ways. The minimum requirement for being eligible to apply to Yenching Academy is completing your bachelor's degree before enrollment. So if you're thinking about applying this year to enroll in September of 2025, the minimum requirement is that you must have completed your bachelor's degree no later than August 31st of 2025. So just keep that in mind. Essentially, you can't go to grad school until you've graduated. We are a highly competitive, fully funded master's program. So academic success is a very important part of the application of someone who might be successful in joining our program. We do not have a minimum GPA for application requirements. It is not first class with honors or don't apply. It's not 4.0 or don't apply, but academic success is an essential part of the successful applicant's profile. We also want to know a little bit more about you outside of the classroom. When you come to Yenching Academy, you're not just a student. You're a roommate, a neighbor, a collaborator, a colleague, and generally a friend with your classmates. If you have already taken a graduate degree, I think you understand that grad school is a very intense process. It is intellectually challenging. It is sometimes emotionally challenging as well. And when you add in the intensity of a graduate experience in a different culture, in a different political system, in a university administrative system, that in some ways intensifies the intensity of the experience. So we want to know a little bit about who you are, what kind of a friend you'll be, what kind of a roommate, a colleague, not only what kind of a classmate. Are there any extracurricular activities that are really important to you? Are you focused on charitable work? Are you a jazz musician or an athlete? These are the things that we want to know to get a better picture of who you are, but also somewhat selfishly from our institution's perspective, we want to know what kind of cool things you can bring to the table outside of the classroom. We really emphasize students who have experience and or commitment to cross-cultural communication because we are a highly diverse student body here at Yenching Academy. And we make a major investment in each Yenching scholar and each class of Yenching scholars and in all Yenching scholars as a whole. We really want students who are deeply interested in better understanding China. We want Yenching scholars to have a lifelong professional relationship related to China. Our students are too smart. They're too critically minded. They're too well educated for us to ever try to tell you what to think about China. We will not try to tell you what to think about China. We will hopefully train you how to think, how to answer, how to ask questions, how to integrate research methodologies and theories into a system to answer those questions. So we'll never tell you what to think about China, but we want you to be part of the conversation about China going forward. What does that mean, being part of the conversation? So very frequently, we've had a lot of students who are coming from developing countries or countries that are connected to the One Belt, One Road project. Sometimes students from those areas are very interested in encouraging more investment in their home economy. And so their application package includes, I want to increase the amount of investment coming into my home country from China. I want to deepen the bilateral relationship. That's one way of being part of the conversation about China, specific to this imaginary applicant that I'm making up here. But an equally valid and useful way of being part of the conversation about China might be someone who says, I don't think that Chinese investment has been that effective in my home country. For whatever reasons, maybe it hasn't helped as many people as it could have. I want to be part of the process of making sure that continued Chinese investment in my home country actually benefits more people here. That is also being part of the conversation about China. So we're not going to tell you what to think or what to say, but we want you to be involved in that process going forward. And just like any, good grad program or good job, you really do need to emphasize why you're interested in our program, what it is you hope to learn here, what you hope to gain, and how you think your time as a Yenching scholar can potentially affect your career and help you achieve those goals. Application requirements. Okay, these are the documents that must be submitted as part of everyone's application to Yenching Academy. We will need a certificate of English proficiency if your native language is not English, and if you have not been enrolled in and graduated from an English taught degree program. So if English is not your native language, but you have graduated from an English taught university, your diploma will essentially replace the certificate of English proficiency. If you're currently still in school, we need official certificates of enrollment from your university registrar. If you have graduated, we need your official diploma. We also need official transcripts from all institutions of higher education that you've attended. Let's say as part of your bachelor's degree, you did a semester exchange at Fudan University in Shanghai. If that Fudan transcript is not on your official academic transcript, I recommend you include that. We have 2 letters of recommendation that are required. These 2 letters of recommendation must be academic letters of recommendation. They must be from professors. And Peking University and top Chinese graduate programs have a standard that these letters of recommendation must be from associate professors, full professors, or the equivalent. So that is essentially in a sort of more UK structured style education system, that's going to be senior lecturers or higher. If you have someone like an internship manager, a job manager, or an assistant professor or a lecturer, then they can submit letters for you, but they must be additional documents and they can't fulfill the academic letters of recommendation requirement. This is standard at Peking University. Okay, personal statement, statement of research interest, and resume. These are the 3 parts of your application that you control yourself. You don't know what recommendation letters will write. You can't change your diploma or your academic transcript. But these 3 ones are very essential. The personal statement in English, maximum 750 words, is essentially your cover letter. It's your introduction to who you are, where you're from, why you're interested in China, why you're interested in Yenching Academy, where you want to go in your career, how you think we can help you achieve those goals. It's essentially your cover letter. The statement of research interest, maximum 1,500 words, twice as long as the personal statement, excluding citations. The statement of research interest is your intellectual, academic self-introduction to us. It is a formal academic document. It should contextualize the topic that you want to explore at Yenching Academy in secondary academic literature. A bit of advice, do not apply to a graduate program that has a statement of research interest, a research statement, and not include references to academic literature. Always include that in your research statements for graduate school applications. As someone asked in the chat a little bit earlier, the statement of research interest does not commit you to that topic being your eventual master's thesis. But it is a forward-looking document. It is what you at the application stage think you want to explore for a potential master's thesis. It can be one topic. It could be a couple of topics you're interested in exploring. But be careful. Don't overextend yourself with too many suggested topics in your statement of research interest, because the more topics you have, the less depth with which you can discuss them. So it is a formal academic document, but it does not commit you to that being your eventual master's thesis. The goal of the statement of research interest is to, by reading this short essay about your research interests, begin to understand how you think about research. Consider this the first step in a multi-year conversation you will have with Yenching Academy and with faculty at Peking University, eventually developing into your master's thesis topic. And then your resume is pretty standard. You know, what you've studied, you know, where you've worked, research projects you've done, things that you want to emphasize that are interesting and unique, and help address your experience building up to applying to Yenching Academy. These are 3 individual documents, but of course they're part of the same application package. It's about the same person after all. But you should try to use these 3 documents to emphasize different aspects of you, the applicant to Yenching Academy. Another bit of free advice, and I hopefully don't need to say it, please avoid repeating the things in your resume, in your personal statement. Don't just list, you know, in your personal statement, everything that's in your resume. Okay, that's what I have for you about application requirements. Here are our social media. If you have any specific questions, reach out to us at yca-admissions@pku.edu.cn. Please go check out our website in English at yenchingacademy.pku.edu.cn. Look at the program, look at the professors, look at the profiles of current Yenching scholars. All current Yenching scholars are publicly available on the website. I hope you'll get a sense of the diversity of our student body. And I don't just mean regional, national, cultural diversity. I mean the really different backgrounds, courses of study, degrees, professional or internship experience, the sort of different, you know, unique sets of experiences that all successfully led to these young people being Yenching scholars. You can find us on, I hate saying X, you can find us on Twitter, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, and on WeChat down there at the bottom. Really appreciate your time and attention. Thanks for your interest in Yenching Academy. I hope to see some of your applications, but whatever ends up happening, I wish you all the best moving forward. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off from a cold but clear blue-skied Beijing. Thank you all very much. Take care.